remember the way that my bedroom carpet felt between my fingers. And it was the same carpet that I would sit on when I was creating puppets out of brown paper bags and listening to music and trying to record songs on the radio with like a cassette tape. I don't know if you guys ever did that when I would like be so into it. The same carpet I spent drawing and playing with pogs with my brother. And I remember that carpet so well because it's the same carpet that held me as I cried when my father passed away. And I have this memory of how he taught me how to swim on my back. And I think about it every time I smell chlorine in the air. And I remember playing Nintendo 64 with he and my brother for hours and hours, Diddy Kong Racing, Mario Kart, all the greats. And I remember when he won me a stuffed animal from one of those claw vending machines. I remember it so well because I thought it was impossible. I was so young. I was like, there's no way. And he pulled it off. And I remember when he tapped on the window before sunrise so that me and my brother would go fishing with him. And I was the only one that caught a fish that day, just for the record. And I also remember his rage. I remember his temper. I remember how the room shook when he yelled. And I remember the red and blue lights in the rearview mirror. I remember the officer patting him down on the side of the road while my brother and I sat in the back of the police cruiser and watched. I remember the letters that I wrote him that went unanswered. And I remember the exact moment that my mother told me he was gone. I also remember the funeral. And truth is, my father was by no means perfect, and I loved him. I revered him, I respected him. And although he was not what I would consider a present father, he was the only one I had, and I adored him. I walked through the world a little bit taller with my head held high when he was in it, because I knew he would protect me. And shortly after he died, I was on that same bedroom floor, trying to piece things together in my 12-year-old brain. And I wondered, well, if my dad is gone, then who's going to take care of me? And in that moment, that was the most miraculous thing happened. I heard this loving whisper, and I felt it, and it said, I will take care of you. And I was so young that I didn't really know what was happening. I didn't classify it as like a spiritual experience. I just felt it. And I remember I believed it. And here I am, all these decades later, standing before you, and that voice has kept its promise to me. And I'm sharing this with you this morning because it's truly the one thing that genuinely is the hardest thing for me to talk about. It's the one thing I fear people knowing about me. I feel exposed. I want to run away and eat a cruller. I want to hide and drink some coffee, okay? But also, I couldn't be prouder of myself for sharing it with you. And my message this morning is simple. When we embrace and share our stories, we create meaningful moments of connection that open up new creative possibilities in our lives and in our art. Oftentimes, we champion creativity and personal growth and self-development, and I love that stuff, I really do. Yet we don't acknowledge the growing pains that come and the dark and the shadows that are a part of life. And frankly, it sucks, which is why we avoid it at all costs. We don't want to go there. We don't want to be seen as weak. We don't want to feel exposed. We don't want people to know that about us. So we carefully construct these masks in order not to be seen as weak. And in the process, we forget who we are. We self-forget. We betray our own uniqueness in order to blend in. And we build our walls higher and higher and higher, hoping to keep the fear and the pain out, hoping to keep the vulnerability out, not knowing that those walls are what create the perfect condition for fear and shame to thrive. And when we do this, when we try to block out the pain, we also block out all of the joy and the deeply resonant art that we're here to create and experience. When we block out the pain, we block out the beauty. When we numb ourselves from feeling difficult emotions, we rob ourselves of feeling the good ones too. I love that. I love it. Talk to me. Talk to me. Talk to me. Did you know that the same neural pathways that we use when we experience emotional pain are the same ones we use when we experience joy? And if you think about it, I know I saw you stand up. I said, she knows what I'm about to say. She knows. She already knows. What does your body do when you experience deep sadness? Your heart might beat faster. Your palms might get sweaty. Your eyes might water. You might scream. You might cry. You might wail. Well, think about it. Think about the happiest moment in your life. Did your palms get sweaty? Were you nervous? Were you excited? Did your eyes water? Did you cry? Did you laugh until you cried? According to the Harvard Gazette, pleasure and pain activate the same part of the brain. And one of my favorite authors, Brené Brown, writes in her book, Daring Greatly, we cannot selectively numb emotions. When we numb painful emotions, we also numb positive ones. The dark does not destroy the light, it defines it. It's our fear of the dark that casts our joy into the shadows. Well, she goes on to say, we cannot ignore our pain and feel compassion for it at the same time. And that's the gloriously uncomfortable place I want us to sit in this morning as we talk about what it really means to rise above our story and to rise above our pain, to rise above when nothing seems to be going right in our life and in our art. I believe it takes a cozy cocktail of courage, compassion, and creativity. And we can find these pillars in the stories of everyday people, just like you and I, who persevered in the midst of pain and created a beautiful life and legacy. I'm reminded of a young girl and her brother who moved from LA to a small village in Arkansas to live with their grandmother. And at age 7, the little girl was sexually assaulted by her mother's boyfriend. And she told her brother the name of the attacker, which led to the attacker being put in jail for 1 day and 1 night before being released. I know, angry. Shortly thereafter, he was found brutally beaten and killed. The police said he had been kicked to death. And when the little girl heard what happened to her attacker, her 7-year-old mind believed that her words had sealed his fate. And for the next 5 years, she did not speak a single word. And in her silence, in her world of silence, she began reading anything and everything she could get her hands on. She was a sponge, absorbing poetry and plays and history, memoirs and hymns, you name it. It's these books that opened up a whole new world for her and gave her language to use when she was ready. She had fallen in love with poetry and memorized entire plays. One day, her mentor told her she'd never really loved poetry until she spoke it. And she recounts crawling under the porch and speaking for the first time in 5 years. And when she finally decided to speak, boy, did she have a lot to say. That little girl went on to become one of the world's most renowned writers, singers, activists, playwright, mother, and teachers, Maya Angelou. At age 40, Maya wrote I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, an autobiographical memoir that shares her life experiences and creating a masterpiece that continues to reach through space and time. It's also on the banned books list, so if anybody can do something about that, that would be great. That would be awesome. The book helps people find healing and hope. And that was just one of the first 7 autobiographical works that she wrote, in addition to countless number of poems and plays. And she found her voice, and we can too. But it's not going to happen by pretending to be like someone else or pretending we don't have the past that we have. Your story is the most powerful asset that you own and the greatest gift you can give to the world. It is yours. No one else has the same story, the same combination of life experiences that you have. And no one else has lived or walked in your shoes. You are truly an unrepeatable miracle, and this is your power. I believe the fully developed, fully realized creative can hold the duality of fear and joy, loss and hope, rejection and courage, and they can hold it with compassion. It's by embracing both that we rise, and by holding these dualities that we rise. It's by standing in the difficult seasons and learning in the midst of it that we can create from a place of beauty and truth, resulting in art that resonates deeply with the world and more deeply connects us to one another. The ability to look back, create beauty with what you find, and continue to move forward, that's the masterpiece. That's the art. That's the charge of every single creative in the sound of my voice. When we learn how to view our life experiences with genuine compassion, infinite grace, and honest acceptance, we become an unstoppable force. We unleash our power. That's how we leave a legacy. That's how we make history. In 1608, a young man was born in London who would become a world-renowned poet and scholar. But by age 43, he was completely blind in both eyes due to glaucoma. And I first heard this poem in high school, and something about it really resonated with me. It was the first time I'd read a poem that I felt like someone was letting me look into the window of their soul, of their pain. And something about it moved me then, and it still moves me now. I'm going to read it to you. It's written all like old, you know what I'm talking about? So bear with me. Bear with me. Okay. I thought about like making it shorter in parts and like destroying the work of art that he made, but it's better this way. Okay. When I consider how my light is spent, that's the name of the poem. When I consider how my light is spent, ere half my days in this dark world and wide, and that one talent which is death to hide, lodged within me useless, though my soul more bent to serve therewith my Maker and present my true account, lest he return chide. Does God exact labor, day labor light denied? I fondly ask. But patience to prevent that murmur soon replies. God doth not need either man's work or his own gifts. Who best bear his mild yoke, they serve him best. His state is kingly, thousands at his bidding, and post o'er land and ocean without rest. This is my favorite line. They also serve who only stand and wait. Lord knows when we're in the dark night of the soul, it feels impossible to imagine it passing. It can feel intensely lonely and isolating. It can feel like no one understands, like our creativity has dried up and our craft is far away and unreachable. But what I love about Milton is that he invites us to be fully present in that place with him, to embrace it, to ask the hard questions, and be open to seeing a new perspective. In this poem, he calls that voice patience, and patience replied, they also serve who only stand and wait. Stand and wait. For the purpose of this conversation, let's replace stand and wait with the word rise. They also serve who rise. John Milton went on to create 1,645 poems and books, and to feel it all and to learn how to move straight through pain is something he taught us. And maybe, just maybe, you'll see that even though it feels like it's happening to you, there's a world where it can happen for you if you let it. I want to close with a little story. It's a story about how I became a plant mom. And I'm going to take you back to the summer of 2020. I moved from Florida to California. And frankly, I just needed a change of scenery and also to get out of Florida. I'm just going to be honest. I'm going to be honest. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all. I sold my house. I sold everything and got in my little U-Haul and drove across the country And I got there and I started buying, furniture and making it cozy and vibey. And I said, now I need some greenery. I need some plants to really make it feel like home. So my friend came into town, Susie actually came into town, and she and I went to a greenhouse. And we pulled up. I'm thinking I'm going to see like a store, like Wentworth or something. But I pulled up and it's a house, like in a neighborhood, like a small house. And I was like, okay, I might get taken. This might be the moment for me, and I have to be okay with that. But I rounded the corner, and it's just what this couple did with their home was just fascinating. This whole greenhouse in the backyard. And I moseyed on back to the tropical plants, whole wall full of them. And the woman comes over to me and says, all of those plants are free. We have usually a line around the block, and we give them away to the community, but because of COVID, we can't do it. She said, so take as many as you want. And I left that day with 21 plants. I expected to get like 2 or 3. I left with 21. I could barely see out of the back of my car. And so to care for these plants, I was obsessed with them. Okay, I downloaded the apps. I bought the dirt. I bought the tools, the fertilizer, the little spritzers, the little sprays. And I watched these plants like a hawk every single day. I woke up, coffee, walked to all my plants, said hello, said good morning, right? And as soon as one leaf would start to yellow, I would immediately be consumed with anxiety and fear because I wanted them all to live. And I would Google it. I would look it up, right? I'm like on WebMD for my plants, And 9 times out of 10, the leaves just needed to be clipped away so that the rest of the plant could continue to thrive. And it was the release and pruning process that was vital for the plant's growth and nourishment. And that's what they don't tell us about growth. They don't tell us that about creativity, art, life. There are often things that need to be cut away or removed in order to grow and to thrive and to rise. And no, it's not going to feel great, but it's the same in writing as it is in life. And year after year, day after day, minute after minute, we grow, we change, we find new strength, and we evolve. In order to rise, we must release. We must release the fear, release the expectations, release the blame, release the perfectionism, release the comparison game, release the desire to fit the mold in the name of acceptance, release the shame, release the guilt, release the fear of rejection and the people-pleasing. That's the one I need to work on, people-pleasing. I mean, all of them really, but these are all things that weigh us down. They're things we can't take with us as we rise. And I know this is a tall order. I just listed a lot of things, right? But if you can't release them forever, just release them for now. Just release them long enough to try, to do what's in your heart to do what you're afraid to do, but you know is right. Suspend all disbelief, even just for a moment, long enough to put your art into the world because we need it and we need you. I say all of that to say, so often we glorify ease and flow. And I'm sure you've heard the phrase, follow your bliss. And usually I love that. I love that phrase. I love that stuff. But in the spirit of seeing a new perspective this year, I want to challenge one idea this morning. Because sometimes when it's right, it's hard. And sometimes the easy path isn't the one that teaches you the lessons that your soul is here to learn. And sometimes it's not fair, but we shouldn't fear because better is coming. And sometimes looking back is what can move us forward in a better direction. Sometimes there are lessons that only adversity can teach us, and that's life. I'm here to remind you that no matter what you're going through, you belong here. You are an essential part of the fabric of this community. And who you are right now in this moment is more than enough. You don't need more to begin. You can start right where you are, use the gifts and tools that you have, and leave a legacy. I pray this year is the year you rise into the most fearless version of yourself. I pray this is the year you love yourself deeper than you ever have before. I pray this is the year that you create art that tells the true story of who you are and what you've overcome. And we will all watch in wonder and awe as your wildest dreams rise to meet you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, keep it going for Anastasia Jones. Thank you so much. All right, so thank you so much. Just so wonderful. I was so looking forward to today, and you just exceeded every expectation I had. So thank you so much for your words today. We would love to open it up to the audience and invite you to ask questions you have for Anastasia. But I'm going to ask the first one. Will you come help me take care of my plants? It is a nightmare.
I'll come.
Thank you.
I will come. I'm actually going to rehab a friend's plant soon. I won't, shout the friend out or anything, but you know who you are.
It me?
No.
It me.
You are that friend. I'm kidding. Yes.
Okay. Who has questions for Anastasia?
Yes, anything you want. Ooh, we have one up here. Ooh, current political climate. I'm going to be honest. It affects all of us, yes. But just because of my mental health, I'm not super into it. I don't know how else to say that. And I got to be honest. But in answer to your question, yes, I allow the things that personally impact me and my story and impact the community and the people that I love. I allow it to inform my craft. And I love watching art like that and experiencing art like that, where people have used a different kind of container for their art, because I think there are an infinite number of containers for our art. And in any season, we can choose to express it in so many different ways. So my container is writing usually, or speaking, or so yes, I do allow it to inform my craft. Yeah, I love that question. Thank you. There was another one. Yes.
I totally love what you said about ease and flow. That's what we're shooting for, and yet sometimes it's hard. And I'd love to hear you say something about how do you know when you're pushing too hard and you're not in flow versus it's hard, but lean into it and keep going.
I love that. Well, I'm super into intuition. And from a young age, I've allowed myself to I don't know, it's hard to express, honestly, but I've allowed myself to be open to different perspectives, even in moments where it's been really hard and I don't know what to do. If I still myself just enough, or if I really journal it out and try to see it from the perspective of, okay, I'm gonna rewind. Even in the moments that we're afraid, there's a part of us that is not. There's a part of us that's a witness to us being afraid. And so if I step into the role of the witness while I'm in my fear, it always guides me. And I think that's the same for all of us. If we can neutrally observe the experience that we're in, we always have a path, maybe not out, but through. Yeah, I love that. Angel over here. Got you, Angel. Thank you. I love that question. Yes. It's okay. Yeah. It was like an old, kind of gristly, it used to be soft once. And it had different bits of old paint and things in it because I didn't vacuum it. And it was tan, it was beige. and it was right next to my dresser, where my dresser would be, and my bunk bed would be behind me. But yeah, I don't know if that was part of the picture you saw, but I love that. Yes.
I'm just curious if part of your story that you said you were afraid of and didn't want to share. I was a little confused if was that your father or the voice that was speaking to you, and is that spiritual?
So I don't know if that voice that I heard in that moment was my father. I don't necessarily think it was. You could call it God. You could call it the Holy Spirit. You could call it, love. It just felt so loving to me. And it's like I heard it and I felt it and I knew it. So I don't know if it was my father. I'm a dreamer, so I've definitely had dreams about my father, and we've had conversations, and honestly, very powerful stuff. But in that moment, I don't know if that was him. No, that was the odd part. And I was so young, like I hadn't read any of these spiritual books or anything. Like I hadn't listened to podcasts or anything, but that's why it's so profound to me, because it just was. Yeah, thanks for asking. Yes.
Do you work with any young people? Because I feel strongly that your stories and your messages, messaging could be so inspirational for young people that are, feeling a little bit lost.
Oh. Well, I'm totally open to it. Yeah, I got my girl over here. She's thank you for saying that. I would love to. I love kids, and I love, empowering and encouraging them. And honestly, I love reading kids writing. I think that's really beautiful and powerful. So thank you. Yes.
For one, I am no longer a kid.
Yes, you are a grown man.
So, from your speaking.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much.
When you talked about embracing and holding the dualities
Mm.
kind of these complex emotions and then releasing them, I'm wondering if you can speak more about how you learned, or what, whether it's people or kind of mediums or manifestations, how did you learn to hold that with some ability?
Yeah.
And how those things fit together. It feels like you have to hold them just enough
Mm.
to feel in that discomfort,
Mhm.
and then be able to release.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how did you learn?
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. So, I mean, one of the gifts that my father gave me is that I felt this need to create a world for myself. Now, granted, I was raised by a single mother, 3 kids. She's a stinking warrior. I love her. I don't know how she did. I can't imagine. She had 3 kids by my age, and it just blows my mind. All that to say, when my father passed, and I felt the sense to create an inner world. And so writing was a huge part of that, because I didn't feel safe expressing myself fully in other ways. And I was a kid. So journaling has been huge for me, and helping me kind of hold that duality. So remember, just before I was talking about being a witness and observing and then being in the fear. So journaling for me is I process the fear, and then I step into the seat of the witness, and then I process what the witness is saying to me. And that's how we kind of, meld the two. I also heard a quote once that said, "The depth of the pain is equal to the depth of the joy that you can experience." And so anytime I'm in a difficult moment like that, because last summer was I was very depressed last summer. It was really hard for me. And I just kept remembering, if it hurts this bad, it's going to be so freaking good. And I just have to keep believing it. I just have to keep believing and hoping that that's true. Of course. Are we good? Do we have time for one more?
How about one more?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the book, yes. So thank you for asking. So I wrote a book. It's a 21-day guided journal to help people reignite their creativity. And it actually came out of a season where I felt so not creative. And like I would journal, but I would go to like write blog posts or, something that would be released into the world. And I just I couldn't do it. I mean, I would stare at that blinking little, cursor. And then once I started coming out of it, it was actually this time couple years ago. And I decided to start a challenge for women who wanted to, come together. And every day I would write a new intuitive message. Literally, I would wake up that morning and be like, unconditional love, what would you like to tell these women today? And so the book is like a compilation of what those messages were. I did that every day for 30 days. And then I picked the 21 of my favorites and I put them in a book. And so it has like really powerful prompts. It's stuff that I read it now and it still helps me. So it's on Amazon, Unleash Your Power. Thanks for asking.